You're listening to The Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to Season 3 of The Girl Dad Show, where we explore the intersection of parenthood and entrepreneurial spirit. Join me and some incredible guests as we share tips and tricks for finding work-life balance and making a positive impact not only on the world, but also our families. Let's create a fulfilling life together. It's The Girl Dad Show, Season 3. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. Today is a very special episode as it is episode 100. I can't believe that we have been doing this now for 100 episodes, and I am just so excited and happy that we have made it this far. There is a thing that I have that I like to, I've actually talked about it on the show, but I like to do 100 interviews before I jump into a new business or a new venture. And the Girl Dad Show is a version of that, except it's been recorded. And so it's really fun to be here at 100 episodes and now get to think back on what I've learned and what I've done and share with you some of the journey of getting the show to 100 episodes. But I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to go on, and I can't wait to talk to you a little bit about what I've learned, but also what I plan on doing for the next 100 episodes. But before I go into it, I wanted to take a moment to just stop and thank you for all of your support and all of your kind words, listening in, tuning in, sharing, subscribing, commenting on social media, giving me reviews, and all of the support that you've given me. It really is so meaningful to me and has helped me along this journey as I do this for myself, but also for anybody that needs this kind of advice as they struggle with the same things that I'm struggling with and trying to figure out how to navigate their professional career with, building a family. And so from the bottom of my heart, I just wanted to thank you for being on this journey with me for the last 100 episodes. Please take a moment to give me a 5-star rating or a share or a subscribe. It really does help continue to support the content that we're creating here as we continue on this journey for the next 100 episodes. All right. So now that you know I'm so thankful and grateful, let me jump into a couple of things that I have learned. Let's start with all the functional stuff. So at 100, when you do something 100 times, you're going to get pretty good at things. And I will say that, over the last few months, I have realized that I have improved on my hosting skills. And so my hosting skills have gotten a lot better. And I can tell the difference from my earlier episodes to now. I don't really watch my own show too often, but I have seen a couple of them. And I do remember watching my first episode, and I watched one recently. And I'm definitely a lot better. I'm a lot more natural, and I feel like I have a better skill set in filling in the gaps and doing those things. But one thing that I did note is that over the last 3 months, especially, I've been a guest on a lot of other parent podcasters and just other podcasters in general. And it's really fun to be a guest as a host of my own show because I'm kind of watching what they're doing as a host and kind of watching it from both sides of the table there. And I realize I have a lot to learn. And there is a actual hosting skill set. And although I am improving just from practice and figuring out my style and what that looks like, I think there are things that I can do to make that even better, faster. And I'm going to work on that over the next 100 episodes, maybe find some classes or read some books around it. But I have noticed quite a few other hosts that host a lot better than me. And there's a lot of things that they do that I like to disarm the guest and make them feel more comfortable faster, ask better open-ended probing questions. So it's just better content and more interesting material that gets to the core of what the guest is trying to do and say. There are a lot of little things that I can improve on, but I'm really excited about doing that over the next 100 episodes, is taking a concerted approach on learning the skill of hosting better. Another functional thing that I've learned over the last 100 episodes is that this is a lot harder than I ever thought it would be. It's much more complicated, and there's a lot of moving pieces to doing a show. And of course, I did a video show, so it makes it even harder. But I guess I could turn the video off, but I don't really know why I would at this point, because now I've already done so many of these that the infrastructure is built. But having done 100 of these, we have now gotten the the process down pretty well. We know, who takes the content, who schedules it, who gets the release forms, who chops up the videos to create reels for promotion, who does distribution, when do we do the website upgrade, do we want to do brand resets every year, like we have breaks now, like all this stuff, the rigmarole has all been flushed out for the most part. And it's pretty nice to have this nice working machine that cranks this out and makes this much more enjoyable for me, because now I'm really just focused on meeting really cool professional parents and talking to them and learning from them and really feeding my brain and heart with their knowledge and point of views, versus trying to make sure I'm operationalizing the actual show and figuring all that out. And so 100 episodes in, I will say I feel a lot more comfortable about where the show is at and how it operates. And I'm really excited for the next 100 episodes, because the goal now is that, because that is stabilized and there is a process for everything, and it's pretty well-oiled machine with the team that I have, I'm now focusing on growing the show and growing the reach and downloads, and starting to figure out how to like market this. And that is very, very exciting, because it's like an evolution of the show. I just underestimated how much work hosting a show would be. And once I realized that, it took me about 100 episodes to figure out how to systematize it. And now I'm here. So I can confidently say I feel pretty darn good about this show's production and distribution process. And so 2 thumbs up. And that's something else that I learned. And for anyone listening, try to do something for 100 times before you give up on it, because it does take quite a while, especially for something that's a little bit more multi-level than just like a transaction. Because for me, this is not only a show, it's also me interviewing for myself. It's also interviewing for content. It's also now going to be a business that I'm going to try to market and grow. And so it's kind of multifaceted. And so even figuring out what I was doing and why I was doing it took quite a while. But definitely just to work out the kinks, it took me quite a bit of time once I figured out what it was for me. And so my recommendation is try to stick with things for at least 100 instances, so you can actually see if it's something that you want to continue to do. And if it's something that you enjoy doing and what it is that you want from it. And it gives you enough reps to actually figure out a way to systematize it, so that you can actually think clearly about if you want to continue it or not. That being said, those are the things that I learned more functionally about doing this show 100 episodes. Some of the life lessons that I've learned since the 100 episodes is that there are an incredible amount of changes that are happening in the world. And it's really interesting to see, so many different parents come on here and talk to me, and from their perspective, right? And although the age group has been, mostly around the same, there have been some disparities, right? I've had some 20-year-olds and I've had some 60-year-olds and grandparents and so forth as well. And it's really interesting to think about, like, what the expectations were for our previous generation versus what the expectations are now in this new generation, what the expectations will be for the next generation coming in. But parenting has definitely evolved quite a bit, especially for my generation. And I'm not, maybe it's because I'm in the generation, I feel like it's more unique, but I don't think it is, because I think the fact that we have digitized so much of the world and opened up the channels of information so widely and broadly, that I think that it is fairly unique. There's a big disparity between, my dad and me. And I think there'll be a bigger disparity less of a disparity between me and Lily and Grace. And so it's pretty interesting to think about that, because, when you talk to these parents at scale, with all these different touch points and data points, the one thing that I can pull from it, from the macro, is that, everyone is kind of struggling with this change of how they grew up versus what it looks like in the future. For generally speaking, like, all the values are the same and all the core instances are the same, and you could drag those in from your parents, but there's a lot of things that are not applicable. And it has a lot more to do with the fact that, one, we don't need as many things as we did, because our parents' generation, created the infrastructure systems for us to be a little bit more evolved or augmented. And second of all, we have a lot more digitization. And so there is just a lot more out there for us to consume and think about. And so I think that that has changed the way that we need to parent. And it has helped me really understand that, like, um, these conversations need to happen more. And I'm not just saying it because I run a show called The Girl Dad Show about parenting, but I also have started to meet quite a few dad and parent content creators, especially over the last 3 to 6 months. And I was looking for them 2 years ago when I started this thing, and I couldn't find them. And now I'm finding them and meeting them. And it's really interesting to be a guest on their shows. It's really interesting for me to watch their content and listen to the way that they're trying to tackle the problem. But you could tell that this stuff needs to be brought more to the fore, because it's hard to navigate, what is right and what is wrong in this new world. There's just so many new things that we have to compete with that, that are not the same as they used to be. And so I feel like that's something that I've learned, is that the world is evolving and we as parents need to evolve as well with it. And that's actually okay. And it's okay to have that thought process. Although I am very, very certain that I think that the core values can be brought forward and those are all the same. I think it's just how you apply them can be changed and adapted to the current needs of the time. And also, I mean, point blank, like, we just don't need as much rigidity in the way that it was structured. I mean, I think there was a lot less luxury and a lot less amenities that were accessible to people, even in the previous generation. And so just by that default alone, I feel like we have more awareness around, not just like emotional health, physical health, sorry, but also emotional health and even mental health. And so it would be remiss of us as parents if we didn't take advantage of the fact that, a lot of these niceties to have are here because the previous generations have built them, and we can now take that and add to it for our kids. And so there is a sense of like evolving evolution, so to speak, as it relates to being a parent. And so that's pretty exciting and really interesting for me to think back to when I think back to the 100 episodes. And even as a data point for myself, I feel like I've learned a ton, just over the last like 2 years being a parent, and just watching and learning and reading about the world and how it's changing, and what does that look like for my kids, and how do I answer these questions, like, for my kid, and how do I want them to grow up? Like, for example, here, let me give you a very clear example, so it's not so superfluous here. Like, college is a great one. I grew up, very rigidly saying you got to go to college, you got to go to college if you want to live a good life. And I don't actually care anymore. I don't care if my kids go to college or not. And I actually personally, if I had a bias that I won't project onto my kid, I'd actually prefer it if they didn't go to college, maybe a trade school or something like that. But I would much rather focus their attention on what they enjoy doing, and what that creativity inside of their passion will allow for them to create and do. And for multiple reasons, but mostly because I think that the next era of this world is going to be so hard to determine and figure out, that at the very least, I want them to be happy. And there's not as many certainties as they used to be. And I think a lot of things are changing, and it's hard to say what's going to be good and what's going to be bad in the future right now. And for one thing that I do know is that if you're happy and you love what you do, you have a better chance of being great at it, and you have a better chance of making money doing that. And at the very least, at least if you don't make money, you will be happy doing it. And so my focus is really around them being happy, versus this concept of like, do this thing, get good grades, and then go to college, and then college will allow you more resources and opportunities, and then that'll get you a really high paying job, and so on and so forth. And that's not the case anymore. And it's just not the reality of the world. And so, there's just like very specific pivots like that are, the values are the same, like invest in your knowledge, invest in your future, and hedge your bets, but the application is different. And so that's something that I've learned over the last 100 episodes, is that the world is changing and a lot of parents are evolving. And that's been really fun to unpack and uncover. This episode of The Girl Dad Show is brought to you by Owners Club. As a business owner myself, I know firsthand how challenging the journey can be. Whether it's having someone that I can ask a very tactical question to, or just being able to share my big successes without guilt. Building a business is a lonely journey, and it does not have to be. After building and coaching dozens of businesses to success, there is one insight that is so obvious and simple, yet hard to execute. And that is network equals net worth. And so if you're a growth-minded, supportive, smart, and hardworking business owner looking for a community of like-minded entrepreneurs to build with, look no further than the Owners Club. You will make lifelong friends and build your business that works for you. You can learn more online at owners.club. Another thing that I learned is that parenting is a lot simpler than I thought it was. I used to freak out a lot when, I brought Lily and then Grace home, and then, well, a little less with Grace. I felt a lot more confident with her, but definitely with Lily, and even a little bit with Grace, is that there's no manual for this. There's no system for this. And I think there are a lot of tactics and tools and things that you can take advice from people and that have proven to work, whether that's sleep training when they're babies, to routine building when they're toddlers, to reward mechanisms as they get older. But all of that to say, I think at the end of the day, all of those things matter and don't matter. What matters is that you do your best. You do your best with what you have, and you do your best to show them love and create a safe environment. And you do what you think is best for them with their best interest at heart. And sometimes that also means learning and soliciting advice and taking courses or things like that. But more often than not, as long as your heart, I think, is in that direction and you have that mindset, you really can't go wrong. I'll call out my brother-in-law. He said something really funny earlier on when I had, my kids were younger. He said, kids are super resilient. They, you can have a bad habit, and if you fix that habit and you stick with it for 3 days with really good determination, they'll learn that new habit. And it was a really interesting comment. And although I don't think it applies as much with my 6-year-old as it used to when she was 4, but it still applies to Grace for sure. I think he's right. And I think that kids are just sponges right now until they become teenagers. And then that's obviously a whole nother set of rules and stuff. But as it relates to parenting, that core set of years, the thing that I've learned is that most parents have very, very different ways of parenting, different value systems, different positions and points of views and thoughts. Even though we're all generally one community, one society, one country. I haven't really interviewed anyone international, but one country, all kind of status quo standard. Within that standard or general direction of doing what we think is societally normal and good, there are these sub layers of vast disparity of values and beliefs and systems and processes for parenting. And it's really fascinating to break that down when I interview this many parents, because you realize that there's no right way to do this. And what really just matters is that you care. And that care communicates not just in words, but also in actions. And your kids feel it, because I think that that's what creates, I don't want great kids, but I was going to say normal kids, because I think about the kids, at least that I know of these parents, and they seem very normal, even though they were raised very, very differently. And what confounds this even more for me is that, every kid is so different. And I think about Lily and Grace, they're brought up with the same parents, with the same roles and the same structure, and they couldn't be further apart from each other. The way they respond to adversity, the way they respond to gratitude, or the way they respond to emotions, almost everything is very, very different for them. And so there really isn't a thing. You just have to do your best and treat treat each kid like a human being that is different and unique and special, and do the best that you can for that kid, and do the best that you can for yourself as a parent that's learning this as well, knowing that there isn't a playbook that's perfect for this, and all you can do is do your best and have that in your heart. So all that to say is that my judgment of other parents is super, super low. And I think that for the most part, this podcast has shown me that there are many ways to do this. And at the core of it, it's really about intentions and desire to, be a good parent and love your kids, and wishing them safety at a minimum, but also happiness, at the top level, and every gradient in between. And if you are a parent listening to this, or you're a soon to be parent, yeah, take a deep breath and relax and enjoy. I know you may not have listened to every interview, but I've now interviewed quite a few parents, and I'll tell you right now, no one really knows what they're doing. And it's okay. It's okay. They'll be fine, and just keep loving them and trying to keep doing your best, and it'll all work out. And so that's another lesson that I learned in doing 100 episodes. And then to bring us back to what I want to do for the next 100 episodes. So in the next 100 episodes, I would love to see how I can turn this into something that really grows and brings this conversation to more people. And so I have a bunch of things that I'm trying right now, and we're programmatically testing a bunch of stuff as we go, and I'm treating it like a true one of my true businesses, right? And so running it through my framework and my owner's manual process to start seeing if I can make it grow. I do give myself quite a bit of latitude. I mean, I've more recently seen a bunch of content, which is so funny because it's almost like they're all listening and watching to me talk, because I've been flooded with content around different famous people that have their own podcasts. And like Alex Hormozy said that he's famous, and he was famous before he even had his podcast go big, but he was saying that it took almost 4.5 years before it actually took off. And this was even after he was already like kind of famous on social media. And then there's another guy, I can't remember his name, but he said the same thing too. He said it didn't really pop off until it was like a couple hundred episodes or something like that. And it's really just about like consistency and drive to make this grow. And so that does make me feel really good that I just need to keep doing it and just keep building it, and stick with it. And one, I'll just get naturally better at it because of just repetition. And then two, I can't imagine with the mindset of trying to grow this, that I won't adapt the questions or adopt new skills or improve the show as I learn, right? As I start to treat it more like a business and start to figure out how to grow this thing. I can't imagine me not testing something and different things to make this get bigger and better. But more importantly than that, at the core of this, the whole point of the show was to just learn from other parents. And so, even if nothing else, I'm so excited to be doing this with you guys, because um, it feeds my mind and heart and helps me connect with other parents that are also on this journey of finding professional success while building a family, and helps me feel like I'm not alone. And I also feel like I'm learning stuff every single week from these amazing people. And I have had some major instances where I have completely changed perspectives in my life based on the guest interviews. And these interviews have influenced me in major ways. And um, I don't know if I can ever quantify how valuable that is. And I'm just so grateful for all the amazing guests and the amazing people that have shown up here to teach me as well as teach you. And I hope that you are learning just as much from this as I am, because 100 episodes in, if you had to ask me, is my life, better, or what did I, learn from it, or what did I gain from it? I would say that I'm a better human being from it. And I would say that I have a lot more perspective than I did even before I started this. And I am so excited about all the parents that I'm going to meet in the future. and be able to interview. And yeah, it's very, very exciting to be at 100 episodes, and I look forward to seeing what the next 100 episodes are. And it is also really cool to, to be at this point, because something really interesting happened at episode like 80, 75 or 80, where I started getting pitched by, marketers, or, marketing executives for their founders and CEOs to hop on my show, which has been a really fun change for me to know that, that's happening. And so it's been really interesting over the last 4 or 5 months for me doing this show, because I'm now meeting very successful parents that I don't know, and they're not really pulled from my network or my network's network. They're being pulled from completely other industries or communities that I'm not even a part of. And so I'm getting to connect and meet with some really cool people, and that I otherwise would have never have met or crossed paths with, which is really exciting, because I'm assuming that'll open me up to new points of view, new cultures, new values, and new ways of thinking that I'm really looking for. I'm really looking for ways to learn and build a life that is quite literally fulfilling in every way. And this has been a very magical journey for me. And I'm very excited to say that we have done 100 episodes of The Girl Dad Show. And I'm excited to go on another 100 more with you. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. And if you have any questions for me, message me or message the team on social media, and we will respond back to you, or I'll respond back to you. But thank you again for all your support, and I'll see you at the next one. Thank you again for listening to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please take a moment to give us a review on your podcast service. These reviews help us grow a lot more than you know.